Last fall, we took down all these trees behind me. Well, we had that rented mini excavator. We used the last couple hours on the clock to knock down all these trees. The trees in this area were made up of a few large trees and then a lot of underbrush. I started by trying to go through and pick out all the underbrush and just thin it out and give me a little bit more room to move around and work. Once I got that all thinned out, then I moved on to tackling the larger trees around the edge. And then all that was left was to take down the few larger trees in the center section. These trees were a little bit larger than maybe what would be ideal with this machine, so there was a lot of digging and prying in order to get them out, but we got it done. It's now the first week of January and it's time to get them cleaned up. We're going to use this spot for our garden this year. I need to get all of this brush out of here so that we can continue with prepping the area so that we can plant this spring. We are going to need a lot of wood chips in the garden, so my goal is to separate any of the small stuff that'll fit in the wood chipper and we'll leave it in a pile here, which we can then come back and chip all right here and not haul it all over the place. And then anything larger than what will fit in the chipper is going to either be firewood or just go in a burn pile. So I'm going to do my best to pick apart this pile with the tractor and the grapple so that then this area can start to dry out. My goal is to get this done today. That way we can get the dirt exposed. It's going to rain tomorrow, but after the rain comes through, then they'll be able to get sun on the ground and dry it out so that we can do some grading and get the area leveled out and get ready to move on with the next steps of prepping the garden. The ground is still just a little bit soft, but we're expecting maybe it's a little bit more than a little bit soft. Yeah, that's a lot of soft in that spot. I say we call it. I just knocked the trees down and piled the brush, and so the areas where there were stumps are just holding water now. So it creates soft spots like that. So it's going to be just too wet to get in that way. So we're going to go to plan B, just to come over here, and we'll come in the end. And we'll just have to grab everything from the end. Most stuff's going this way. But let's just try and start pulling stuff out from the driveway side. I got those. Let's see. Not one of them. After fighting with trying to get this pile separated with the tractor to limited success, my options are either cut it in a bunch of small pieces that I can pick up with the grapple, and then I got a bunch of stuff to deal with, or just burn it right where it sits. Most of this is not really that good wood to use for firewood or anything like that. There's some, but not a whole lot, and I have an excessive need for it either. There is small brush that would be good to chip and use for wood chips in the garden, but we have an abundance of that as well, and it's going to be a lot more work than it's worth to pick that out and separate the rest and then figure out what to deal with the rest. Most of the bigger stuff here is pine, which is no good for firewood, so it's just going to be a waste of my time to do that. So I'm just going to burn it. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, so we're going to try and burn this tomorrow, but when you burn in the rain, it's hard to get around with a two-wheel drive tractor. So I'm going to try and break this down into two piles that are more manageable and kind of split it right behind me. I already started cutting some of the small stuff and splitting it into two piles. I'm going to have a smaller pile here, which is more of the smaller brush. I'm going to try and get down to the bottom where it's kind of soft, and we decided not to try and pick brush up and drive out of there. I think I can get in there and push the pile uphill a little bit, and I'll start this pile at the end and then we'll burn it kind of down this way. That is a wet spot right there, so let's try and keep our tires out of that. Let's see what happens. That'll work. We'll make this work. I think my back tires will float through this for the most part, if I don't make too big of a mess of it. But there is no way I would have been able to actually pull this stuff out. Let's see if we can get out of here. If we can. We didn't already dig ourselves in too big of a hole. I think we can turn out of this though. There just was obviously a stump right there where that front tire is. See if we can slide backwards. Now I think we can go around it. Well, that was our one hurrah, but I think we used it wisely. In terms of that spot, that one spot was going to keep us from being able to do anything. I'm going to keep working on cutting this stuff up and getting it stacked into the two piles. It's about 8 a.m. It's been raining steady like this for about 3 hours. And there's at least another 5 hours coming behind it, so it's perfect weather for burning, so let's go ahead and get this started. It was kind of rough getting this fire started. The rain picked up to be more than what I had anticipated, so I was kind of fighting the rain to a certain extent, and I was also fighting the fact that I just didn't have the fires well stacked because it was just big brush that wasn't well packed. I thought this one was going good, but I went inside, got some dry clothes, got some breakfast, and I guess I left it a little bit too long because it pretty much died down. But there are some good coals, so let's see if we can get it going. The struggle I'm having is I don't have a machine to handle this stuff with, and so I can't get the fire packed in there good. It's the same struggle with this one here too. Can't get it packed tight enough so it just burns a hole out, and then there's too much airspace and it cools down. I had these logs on the left side going really good, and now they won't take much to get them back going again, but they're burnt out. I'm gonna try and throw this together some more. See if I get it packed together better. So we had to shift plans on this. What we decided to do is just manage this one fire, and everything in this pile over here I'm just cutting up and putting on. It's been about 45 minutes since I went inside, and it's still burning good, but I'm gonna try and get more in there. The thing is without a machine to manage this with, I've got to cut them into pieces that I can move by hand because there's no other way to get it packed tight enough to get a good fire going. And I fought with that all morning over here, and it was a waste of time. And so I'm gonna get some more stuff thrown on here, and maybe kick it up with the leaf blower, and then we'll just keep doing that. Alright, that's where we're gonna leave it for tonight. Come back in the morning. No rain overnight, so hopefully this will be some good coals in the morning to get it going back up again. We'll get the rest burnt in the morning. It's the next morning, and all burnt down pretty well. I still see a few red coals and some smoke coming out of there, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal to get started back up. Alright, now that we got all the dry stuff from around the fire that didn't burn yesterday thrown on top, it's kind of settled back down a little bit. Now let's start throwing some wet stuff on and get the rest of this burnt up. So I want to get some bigger wood on this now because it's going good, and I've got a lot of small stuff on there, but I want to get as much of the rest of the larger pieces that I have on there so they can start to dry out and then get going hot and give them most of the day to burn out. But I've worked most of the stuff on this edge of the pile. Pretty much all the big stuff is on the very end of the pile by the driveway, so I think I'm just gonna pull it together in a stack to where I can carry it over here with the tractor and drop it right here and then just throw it on the pile. Though I can keep the pieces bigger, I don't have to cut them so small. Burned down pretty good. I'm gonna throw that together, and then I'm gonna get the last of the bigger pieces cut up, and we do have a few stumps. I'm gonna try and drag up with the tractor and see if I can get them thrown down there. And I know we're probably not gonna burn the whole thing, but see if we can make some progress on getting them burnt up. Try to get the dirt knocked off of this as much as we can. Sometimes people ask me, what does it mean to be a homesteader? And I think it means something different to everyone. But one of the things it means to me is being willing to tackle different projects that maybe you haven't done before, or haven't done it this way before, don't have a whole lot of experience with. You have to adapt and shift. You know, in this case, I've burned brush before, but I've always had a machine available to stack it, pack it, and manage the fire. So I had to figure out how to adapt and do it by hand. And yeah, it was more work having to cut everything apart and stack it up, but it really wasn't that bad. I thought I was just gonna haul all this brush out of here and get it out of the way, and I thought that would be the simplest way to tackle this. But after dealing with the limitations, that caused us to rethink and change plans into burning. And honestly, it worked out better. Now all this brush is completely gone. I don't have it moved somewhere else that I have to deal with later. It's gone. And we're able to get this done on a rainy weekend, where otherwise this rain would have set me back probably 2 weeks to being able to work in here with the tractor. The only thing that we didn't burn up is this one big stump right here, which is actually came from the yard up the hill. And for whatever reason, I just decided to chuck it down here. I don't know why. It's way too big for me to be able to move by hand. I'm not gonna be able to get that onto the pile, and honestly, it's such a big stump, it's not gonna burn up. So I got more brush in the back. We'll haul it back there after it dries out. I can get in there and pick it up with the tractor and take it back there. But other than that, everything else is burned up. There's a little bit of stuff in the back that we're saving for firewood, and that one big pine stump I don't expect to completely burn up, but we'll get it as much as it can be. We'll let this burn down. We'll throw it together one more time at dark, and then hopefully it'll be pretty close to having everything cooked down after that. That's it for adding brush to the fire. It's just getting it all burnt down. Our next project out in the garden is going to be leveling it out, filling in the stump holes, and getting it graded out and ready to start prepping for planting. Not sure if that's going to be our next video or not. It's just going to be depending on how the weather treats us as to when we can get in here and get that done. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you back here next time. All right, there's only one thing left to do with this fire. It's January 8th. It's time to say goodbye.